Hey, what's up, Life Without Pants with another Path of Exile video, and in today's video we're going to talk about this, the Dex Stacking Siege Ballista Hierophant. This is a really great league starter. I've league started this I think twice now. It's really fantastic. The playstyle is like this. So this is a Maze of the Minotaur map. I don't have particularly amazing gear here. I think even my there's lots of improvements I could be making to my gear. This is, I would say, indicative of day 3 gear, something like that. But this, as you can see, this the map is very easy. You just run around dropping totems down. There is a gem swap for single target. You're basically going to put in barrage support in place of your hypothermia. So now I'm just going to zoom forward in time and I'm going to show you what the boss is like. Okay, so we're just going to now we're at the boss. We're going to put in barrage support instead of our hypothermia, and we're just gonna go straight in here, run around to the boss, and we're gonna chuck all these totems down, and we're gonna fire off our bow as well. We have frenzy on the right click, and as you can see, the boss dies pretty quickly. The gear we've got is, I mean, I've got 1/6 link but not 2. The gear we've got is relatively decent, but obviously with a little bit more investment you can be running invitations and stuff really well. There's a few defensive layers to this build, but the main one is definitely, if nothing's alive on the screen, it can't deal damage to you. So let's get into what this build looks like and how to level it. Okay, so that's how it maps and how it bosses. It's really good. I very much enjoy this build. It's been really fun to play. The way it works is we've got this Iron Commander. My overlay's in the way here. Let me just move that. So we've got this Iron Commander unique bow. This is a build enabling unique. You have to have this build for the build to work. It doesn't work any other way. But the Iron Commander basically has this line here: Siege Ballista has +1 to maximum number of summon totems per 200 dexterity. So we're stacking as much dexterity as possible. If we go over here, then you can see I've got 1,755 dexterity. It's quite a lot, but it means that I get up to 15 totems here, and they all fire at the same time, so they pump out a lot of damage. I think, yeah, 1,888. 188,000 rather, which is quite significant. It really melts bosses. It really melts maps. I think the only map mod it can't really run is cannot regen, because you need mana to be able to summon these. You actually get mana regen per summon totem as well with one of our masteries, which is I think Ritual of Awakening, so 5% more damage per summon totem and regen mana per totem, and even your totems get a bunch of life regen as well. So our life regen per second is 788, which is pretty good. If we just remove Siege Ballista, then you can see this goes down to 116. So there's a really decent amount of life regen in this build. We've got cap spell suppression as well, because we get so much per dexterity. I think in Path of Building I'm actually at 124%, so there's no need to take any nodes on the tree really, other than the Mage Bane node here. For the rest of the build, it's basically dex stacking gear. So we've got an Astromentis because it's just straight up loads and loads of dexterity. I've taken Shane's Dominion as the anoint, but we'll go over the gear later on in after we've looked at the tree. Fractal Thoughts is just 1% increased elemental damage per 10 dexterity. You get 36%, a lot of crit multi if your dex is higher than your intelligence. So you want your dexterity to be the highest, strength to be the second highest, and intelligence to be the third, because you also get 15% increased dex if your strength is higher than your intelligence. We've got Hyrri's Demise because this is flat damage per dexterity, which is insanely good. A Wild Wrap because it's just 15% increased dexterity, 1% increased damage per 15 dexterity, so lots of stuff there. For your gloves, just basically going with, this is the end game version. I just went with something to cap out resistances. You could put decks on here and resistances if you can fit them. That's really, really good. The best rings you can get are going to be % increased dexterity rings, synthesized implicit modifiers. Those are the tippy top end. If you can't get that, just chuck on a deafening essence of, I think it's sorrow is the essence that you use. Yeah, deafening essences of sorrow. Chuck these on rings, or I mean quality with attribute with modifiers, or attribute catalysts. I think it's imbued catalysts. That's caster. Is it intrinsic? Yeah, so scour some rings, chuck on some intrinsic catalysts. You only need 4 of them, and then throw on a dexterity essence, and bang, you got a really, really good ring. Garakan's Flight, these are so good. 2 max life per 10 dexterity. There's a huge amount of life you get here. I think if we look, I've got 5k here, and if I take these off, it's 1,000-ish life. That's basically it for the belt. Obviously, again, we're going with synthesis implicit stuff. You don't have to have a synthesis implicit thing. This is a really, really good build without it. But at the top end, if you want to do feared farming with this build, which I have done before, then this is really, this is how you want to end up your belt looking like. Okay, so we've had a look at what it looks like. We've had a look at how it works. Now let's just talk about gems and gem links. This is for the end game. Or not the end game, the swap, at least to the point where you're actually running through this. So obviously you've got Siege Ballista. Best one is Anomalous Siege Ballista, but you've got Siege Ballista in here. You're going to support this with Cold Pen and Inspiration, so you get a lot of inspiration charges. Look at that, beautiful. Then we're going to go with Awakened Added Cold Damage, or just Added Cold Damage, whichever one you can afford. This one's only 8% for some reason. I think this is just a build I threw together. Hypothermia support. This is, I don't even have level 21 for this. This is what you swap out with Barrage support. So Barrage is your single target because it fires all the projectiles in a line, and when you're not using Barrage, then they fire in like in a fan out. So you want Hypothermia support normally, and then you want elemental damage with attacks support. This is your main 6-link. Then when it comes to auras, we've got Skitterbots, which is nice. I've got an Enlighten in here. That's just because I've got Bone Chill. So if you see here, I've got 141 mana free. If I take out Bone Chill and Enlighten, then I've got 175. So Bone Chill just means that the Skitterbots have increased effect of chill on enemies, and if you put that in, then you're down to 52, and that just makes, look, see, this is, when I do that, it staggers the amount of, like, you can put down a bunch of totems, but it just takes a while for them to actually come up, because you get all this increased mana regeneration rate per the number of totems that you have. So if I just do that, then if you see here, I'm just going to put down the totems, and it just until it's faster, and that's because of Bone Chill. So if I were to do it without Bone Chill, then you get down 15 easily, straight away. So you only need the Enlighten when you get Bone Chill. So you don't have to, don't use Enlighten, don't use Bone Chill. Wait until you get a bunch of money, and then you can buy an Enlighten support. And then as soon as it gets to level 2, then it's okay to start putting Bone Chill in this aura setup. So just Hatred, Skitterbots. That's all you need for auras. When it comes to what you have in your bow, you don't actually need this. If you've got a 6-link bow, then and a 5-link body armor, then put whatever you want wherever you want. But for my bow, I've got Frenzy. So when I do this, I got right click, I just hit stuff with my bow. This generates frenzy charges, and you get more attack and cast speed per frenzy charge. So that's really, really useful. I've got GMP in here because I'm just using the frenzy charges. I'm just using this to generate frenzy charges. I don't want to actually do any damage with this. It doesn't really matter too much. So I've got GMP in here. Cast on crit and sniper's mark. So whilst you go into a boss, you put down all your totems, they start firing with the boss, and you do this. So you start firing your arrows, and then you're getting frenzy charges. Your totems are starting to do more and more damage, and you can get Sniper's Mark on the boss as well. Now you can also get Frost Bomb in here. Honestly, this, you just need 4 green sockets in this. That's all you need. Frost Bomb puts a cold exposure on the boss, which is good. So it's a little bit better. And then there's something, you know, I've just got Portal in here, but there are other options for if you wanted a 6th link in here. Maybe Culling Strike support would be really good, because then it's just 10% more damage like that. When it comes to, we've got Mirage Archer, Ensnaring Arrow, and Hypothermia over here, along with Blood Rage. So Blood Rage I actually have on my mouse, so I'm always moving around. Our life regen is really good with this build, and it's even better once we have all these totems up. So it's 100-ish when we don't have any totems up, and when we have all of them, it's almost 1,000 life per second. So you really feel it. If you get hit by like a big hit from a boss, then you just sort of run around for about 3 or 4 seconds and you got most of your life back. But yeah, so Blood Rage just on your left click, so you're always under Blood Rage because you get extra attack and cast speed and stuff from that, or just attack speed rather. Mirage Archer, because then you can hit stuff with your Ensnaring Arrow. I believe I've got mine. Oh, I don't actually have it on here for some reason. There we go. So you can just Ensnare Arrow, and it means the bosses move around a lot less. So that's a good defensive option, and then Mirage Archer will start popping up and trying to, you know, keeping ensnaring the boss as well. And then I've got Hypothermia support here. This is actually where I keep this. So this is actually what I do here. Just ignore this one. This is how I would do my swap normally. It's like this. So yeah, you got a spare socket here, so you can do whatever you want with that. And then for our boots, or wherever you want to put this, I just got dash with second wind, so you got some good dashing that you can do. And then cast when damage taken support and Val Molten Shell. And this is, you know, a nice little damage support here. As far as priorities go, as soon as you hit the swap, which we'll talk about later, the first thing I would do, I mean, I would be having Skitterbots and Hatred if possible. If you can't fit Hatred, or if it doesn't feel good, then that's fine. But Skitterbots, I think, is mandatory, is the first one you should be going for, because that chill effect, that shock effect, that's really, really good. Hatred's, I mean, obviously amazing. You got 19% more cold damage. Obviously, you want that. But yeah, but like I said, Bone Chill and Enlighten, these are, you know, like fluff items for later on that just improve everything. But yeah, you want to get Siege Ballista, Cold Pen, Inspiration, Cold. Added cold damage, and I would say elemental damage with attacks. You can leave the Hypothermia out if you only got a 5 link, but add it in as soon as you got a 6 link. And then for this, just Frenzy, GMP, Cast on Crit, and Sniper's Mark. And that means you're going to get a lot of damage. Really, you're going to front load your damage a lot. So that's the skill overview. Let's get into what the tree looks like. Okay, so for our normal lab, this is just the first few points after you get up on the Twilight Strand. I would suggest doing Armor Brand Cremation leveling. It's decent damage. It allows you to zip through the story, no problem. So you just start off, you take these early damage nodes, you go over here to Retribution. I actually make a beeline straight for Runesmith and Runebinder, so then your Armor Brand can, you know, do a lot more, pump out a lot more damage with Armor Brand. Then, you know, Precision, take Discipline and Training, Light of Divinity, Holy Dominion. There's a really good bunch of notables around the Templar starting area. Obviously, Explosive Impact is really good. I love going dual scepters because it means I can do Leap Slam, which is just one of the best movement skills in the game. So these dual attack and cast speed notables here are fantastic, and obviously elemental overload, because it means you get lots and lots more elemental damage. That's a really big boost for this. For the first lab, we're going straight into Conviction of Power. This means we get 4 endurance charges, 4 power charges, so that's more crit chance from the power charges, and the endurance charges, I think, phys damage reduction and elemental resistances, so it's 16 free all res, which is really good, especially as you're getting through the campaign. So let's take a look at the next lab. So for Cruel Lab, we're carrying on a little bit. We're going to go and get Mental Rapidity, so we've got some increased cast speed, because cast speed is really quite good. We're taking Firewalker, so we get extra fire damage, obviously, and some fire resistance, which is just nice to have. Then we're going to take the Purity of Flesh wheel here for the life mastery, take your 50 extra life. And then we're just going to go straight down, make a beeline here. We're going to go through Sanctity. We're going to boop along here. If you find a jewel and you have a jewel, then chuck it in this jewel socket. That's really good. But then take Constitution. We're going to take 10% increased maximum life. And then we're going to go over to Sentinel to get 10% increased all res, which is just really great, especially during the Cruel Lab section. And then for our Cruel Lab mastery, we're going with Pursuit of Faith, which means we get +1 maximum number of summon totems, and we get increased totem duration. Now you won't be using this because at the moment, just because you're still doing armor brand cremation, and rune binder means you get -1 to maximum number of summon totems. So I would say this is a really good start for the Cruel Lab. At this point, you're going to be getting into level 53 here. At this point, level 53, this is when you want to go to the Rogue Harbor. If you're league starting this, go to the Rogue Harbor at level 53, at level 54, at level 55. Every single time you level up, go to the Rogue Harbor, buy those lock-picking contracts, buy those demolition contracts, so you can do some infinite heists later on, just to get the money required for some of the uniques that this build relies on. And now that the patch notes for Lake Kalandra are out, then we can see that uniques are generally buffed. None of the ones that this build relies on have been touched, I think, apart from Brisk Wrap, Wild Wrap. That's changed, but not the part that we use. So the build is largely intact from the uniques changing, but the unique drop rate seems to have been nerfed significantly, or has been jumbled around. So some of the 1 alchemy uniques that we use might be 2 alchemies instead. I'm gonna go over how much they cost in previous league when we get to the Merciless Lab section, but I think it's still looking really strong as a league starter. And you're going through the campaign or up to Kitava with Armor Brand Cremation, and then going straight into Endless Heist for just a couple of hours really is all you need for the money to get the uniques you need for this build. The Merciless Lab that we're taking is going to be Ritual of Awakening. So I would say the times I've previously done this, I've gone from, I'm doing my Cruel Lab, and then I'm just allocating these extra points. I'm not actually sure why that one is allocated in Cruel Lab. So Cruel Lab, you could do it 52 if you really wanted. But then the Merciless Lab, you take this wheel down here, you take the Fluid Motion jewel if you can get your hands on one. Obviously with Endless Heist, then this is a 1 chaos maximum unique. I think it's 1 chaos if it's maximum rolled. Then there's a few more fire resistance nodes around here, another jewel slot which is quite useful. Taking Mage Bane, so we get +1 chance to suppress spell damage per 15 dexterity. That's going to be really good. The Rain of Splinters is probably going to be one of the most expensive parts of this entire build. Early league, because Explosive Arrow is still a thing, and they also use Rain of Splinters, so that's probably one of the more expensive pieces to take here. Then we're just making a beeline straight over here all the way to the Heartseeker and Critical Mastery, and this is going to bring us pretty firmly into our swap, so let's take a look at that. Okay, so it's time for the swap, and the main crux of this is that it's going to cost 34 points, so you get 20 from the campaign, so that means you need at least 14 Orbs of Regretti from the Endless Heist strats that you'll be running. Maybe also you take these ones off as well, so that would be another, so maybe 20 Orbs of Regret in total. But you want to do the swap when you have around 1,000 decks. That's a really, I did it when it was, I think I had around 800, 900, something like that. 1,200 feels really good, like it feels really solid. 800, little bit janky, but you can get through. But we're basically going to remove all this armor band cremation stuff that we were doing with the leveling, and we're going to go full on into the into Siege Ballista. And for this, again, like I said, you got to have some money for this because you're going to have to get some gear. And the gear we need for the swap is going to be the Iron Commander. I would recommend getting a 5-link, or actually you don't need a 5-link. You need a 5-link somewhere on your gear. You can take this on the Iron Commander, or you can take it on your body armor. So I've got a tabby here, so you could just 6-link and get a tabby. That's fine. That's 20 chaos. I think an Iron Commander 5-link is a little bit expensive at League launch, so you could go with a 4-link here. That's fine. You can 4-link it with just fusings and jewelers. You get the modified number of sockets and fusing, fuse together 4 sockets or link 4 sockets from, I think it's the Calm's Dream and Duresso's Nightmare, or Calm's Nightmare and Duresso's Dream. That's where those crafts are. So make sure you don't run past those at the beginning, when you're going through the campaign. But you need the Iron Commander. You need Hyrri's Demise. Honestly, this was in the past, this was like an Exalt or something. Now it's like 1 chaos. So you're looking at 2 or 3 chaos for the Iron Commander, 1 chaos for Hyrri's Demise. A tabby is probably going to be around 20 chaos. Garakan's Flight were, I think, 30 to 35, maybe say 40 chaos for that. Astromentis can be a little bit expensive as well. I'd recommend getting, I believe it's the Polymath cards for that. And then you want a Fluid Motion. This is 1 alk. And a Rain of Splinters, this could be around 20 chaos as well. So you're looking at around-ish 100 chaos that you need. You can get it from Infinite Heist in I think 2 hours. I think it took me, I was maybe making 50 chaos per hour when I was doing Endless Heist for this. So you can get these things. This is all you need for the, for your hat. You're just going with some dex and some life. Your gloves, some dex, some life, maybe a resistance. You could use crafted resistances here. Your rings, you want some dex, some life, and some resistances. Again, you could craft half of these things on here. The same with a belt. And at this point, we've got some decent resists here. We're not capped, but we've got some decent resists. And then once we get into our tree, we had, just zoom out a little bit here, I had previously on the Merciless, we had gone this way, and then on the swap, we've got a few extra things here. I would actually have Heartseeker, I'm not sure why that's taken off. So you go in here, you take this life nodes, you're taking some totem nodes here, then you're taking the cold mastery as well, 40% of fizz damage converted to cold, because that means you freeze almost everything on the screen, and that's a really great defensive layer. If stuff can't move, it can't hurt you. And obviously we're taking attribute mastery here for all this dex, and I think 5% plus 5 dexterity per allocated mastery passive skill is really good, is really strong. I think it might be better earlier on to get the increased attributes by 0.3%, but later on you're going to switch it to 5% dexterity per allocated mastery, because it's better once you get some more masteries around the rest of the tree. So the swap, also you're going to take Iron Reflexes because you get a bunch of extra armor. Look at that, 24% increased effective hit pool from taking Iron Reflexes. You're coming around here, you're taking Surveillance, Panopticon, and Ironwood, and then 6% increased global crit strike chance if you summon the totem recently, because you want those totems to go up and fast. And this one, skills that would summon a totem have a 30% chance to summon 2 instead. So here you got, this is 800, dexterity. It's a little on the low side, but it's still, this is where I feel relatively confident going into white maps. This is not a bad set of skills or a bad tree. And obviously the fluid motion here, all this strength is being converted into dexterity. This is really, really decent, cheap, unique, that really, really helps this build out. So let's talk about getting into early mapping. Okay, you've swapped over, you're blasting through maps. This is where the build really, really starts to come online and starts to feel really, really nice. Those early white maps, you're gonna run through them, and it's the bossing is gonna feel really nice. Map bossing, just deleting map bosses is gonna feel really, really good. We're gonna take King of the Hill, so we've got 100% increased crit strike chance with bows, which is very good for our totems. We're just like an extra jewel socket over here, and it's got dexterity nodes all around it. This is fantastic, and you're just going to get like increased max life, dex, and strengthened dex. I mean, this is it's a 3% damage boost from just getting this jewel. We're also going to take the lethality wheel, the projectile mastery, because 1% increased projectile damage per 16 dexterity. Again, the more dexterity we stack, the better we are for it. At this point, I'll probably consider doing Uber Lab as well, maybe tier 4 or tier 5 maps. The thing is, there's not a huge amount that's really good for us from Uber Lab, for our 4th Ascendancy rather, so maybe Divine Guidance I think I took just because it's a little bit better. It's as good as that jewel socket, so it just gives you 3.5% extra damage. Transfiguration of Mind is nice. 10% of damage taken from mana before life is also nice, but it can be a little bit difficult with the dots. If you're desperately trying to summon totems but you can't because you're poisoned or because you're on you're on caustic ground or something like that, so just be a little bit careful with dots. It can be a little bit tricky with this build, but let's get into what it looks like in yellow maps. So in yellow maps, this is where we're going to take the other side of this bow wheel. We're going with increases and reductions to projectile speed, also applies to damage with bows. It's not a huge amount of damage, 3.5%. It's pretty good though. Master Fletcher is also very, very nice for this build. You see we've just taken a random dex node, don't actually need that, but we have largely, most notably, included a cluster jewel, and we want a 12% increased totem damage cluster jewel here, and we want sleepless sentries, because that means whenever we summon a totem, if I just do it over here now, you get onslaught. So you get extra move speed, you get attack and cast speed. This is a huge boost overall. It's really, really decent, and this is when you're going to start feeling that the build, you're just running around and summoning totems, and there's nothing on the screen because everything's dead off the screen. It's a really satisfying part of the build. When we look at our red maps, then we're going to have a 2 passive or 2 notable cluster. So Ancestral Echo is really good, 10% increased attack and cast speed if you summon a totem recently. We're always going to be summoning totems recently. You want Sleepless Sentries with that as well. Another jewel, just another extra dex and maximum life. We're taking a couple of extra nodes over here. So we've got Intuition. We don't need the spell suppression from this, like I said, because we've got Mage Bane. And we're getting some increased move speed with Aspect to the Links. We're also taking this Frenzy Charge down here and another jewel slot because we can never get enough dexterity. Never enough. At this point, I would recommend unspecking these things and just staying with Precision because 20% 20 increased dex, and then Discipline and Training because 30 life and 10% increased life is quite a lot. The Strength and Intelligence here, the Strength actually gets converted from Sanctity into Dexterity. So this is Dexterity and Intelligence, so it's a good point to check. Make sure that your Intelligence is lower than your Strength, because you see here it's pretty tight on my gear here. The late game and red maps stuff. This is one of the gear sets I've got in here for you. At this point, you got your Fractal Thoughts. Maybe you got a Siege Ballista, has 15% increased attack speed enchantment to that. That's the best one you can get for my money. And then the rest of the stuff, we're starting to just, our gloves, we're going with gripped gloves, we're going with hunter stuff, so you can get 60% 60 dex and 10% increased dexterity, so you can do that with fossil crafting. I believe it's sanctified and fundamental fossils. I'm not sure where those ones are. Fundamental. Okay, here we go. So yeah, attribute modifiers, and then sanctified is higher tiers, and I think it's like a 1 in 30, something like that, to get some super dexterity increased gloves. Those are really, really good. For the rings, honestly, the rings in the belt at this point, when you're in like red maps, I use them largely to balance out resistances until I can get some kind of insane. These ones here, the percent increased dexterity rings, they can cost anywhere between 1 to 4 exalts, even early on in the league, depending on what the league is like. So I would be a little bit wary about upgrading those straight away and just concentrate on stacking dex wherever you can get it. There's quite a lot of nodes on the tree that you can get dexterity on, and there's quite a few places in the gear. So let's now have a look at the very high investment section. Okay, so you got your void stones, it's your blast, and you're in T16 maps exclusively. Let's take a look at what we can expect from that. So the fluid motion, honestly, you could get one that's 24, and you could get something with like corrupted blood. You could get a good implicit on here. I have unnatural instinct here. This is not necessary, but it's very good. So it grants all of these things here. So you're getting a lot of totem speed and attack speed. You're getting some fizz damage and stuff that we eventually convert all to cold. And then there's all these skill effect increased duration and reduced duration. These kind of balance out a bit to the point where you just get a little bit extra skill duration. Uranus splinters, you're going to have a well-divined rain of splinters, or maybe not divine now that divines are ridiculously expensive, but you're going to have a well-rolled rain of splinters. There are 2 clusters you can add at this point. So maybe you already had this medium cluster for totems, and again, like Ancestral Echo and Sleepless Sentries are the best things you can get on your medium cluster. That's what you want. But you can get a cold conversion large cluster, and this can be pretty big, because you can get cold to the core, which gives you 1% increased cold damage per 25 dexterity, and you've got loads and loads of dexterity. So this just this node on its own is 8% more damage, which is pretty hefty. Doriani's Lesson is nice. Not necessarily, you could go for Master of the Fundamentals or something like that, but the cold clusters are difficult to roll with stuff like Harvest, so I would recommend just buying one. Blanketed Snow as well, damage penetrates 10% of enemies' resistance against chilled enemies. Obviously we got a lot of cold, so we're chilling everything that we hit. That's a really good damage node. Over here, a Brutal Restraint, Balbala. This is really good just because it gives you lots of extra dex on everything, and there are a few really good seeds around here as well. I don't think I have any of them on this particular build. I got a move speed, I've got some minions, blind enemies on here, increased there's some really, I've got plus 20 dex. I got 1 flat dex node here. I would recommend getting dex. Like there's so many notables here that you really want to take. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are a couple of good seeds here for flat dex and percent increased dex, so I'd recommend doing that. There's a Find Timeless Jewel thing in Path of Building just down here, so maybe oh yeah, just over here you can't actually see because of where my camera is, but yeah, I'd recommend checking that out. And then when it comes to Watcher's Eyes, which you can get like as many hatred things as you can get, because again we're running hatred aura, so getting hatred is really useful for this build. The crit strike chance, obviously great. Added flat cold damage is great. If you get triple hatred because you just got some mirrors lying around, then fantastic. But if you just have, I just get 1.5% or plus crit strike chance while affected by hatred, that's enough for this build, honestly. The flat cold I think is not as good because we've got the our Hyrri's Demise, but yeah, this is the kind of end game setup I would recommend. This is 99. You could drop a couple of points. I'm not entirely sure why. You could probably drop these one. Finesse is 20 dex and this is 10 dex. If you really had to, then I would just take these ones last. Or you could drop blanketed snow, but that's like 6% damage, so I wouldn't bother doing that either. But yeah, let's take a look at our uber high investment stuff. So this is, I mean, all these things we've seen on the tree already. For our boots, again, we're going with 10% penetration for enemy elemental resistance. If you haven't killed recently, this is great for bossing, because that first boss, well, all bosses in the arena, wherever you are, maybe Maven or something like that, doing some invites, then all bosses take 10% reduced, you penetrate 10% of boss resistances. That's really good. For Astrumentis, I think Shaman's Dominion is still really decent, but obviously you want a perfectly divined, or just, you know, the best one that is available. Wild Wrap, you can get a plus Socketed Gems one. You can get some good double corruptions here. Obviously Socketed Gems is good for all the support gems that we talked about earlier on. For Fractal Thoughts, then Siege Ballista has 15% increased attack damage. This is still the best one. Here's Demise as well. I believe I have a good corruption. Yeah, so added flat cold damage. Really amazing. And that is, I think that's 23 to 40 it's like 1/3 of the flat damage you can get on a decent, it's basically half of what you can get on a decent Watcher's Eye. So this is half the price difference. I think this one cost me, I think it was maybe 10 chaos, something like that. So you can get a lot of extra damage. The difference between a single hatred and double hatred Watcher's Eye is probably, 20 exalts, or divines now. And the difference between this is 20 chaos. So yeah, I would recommend taking those things. And for your Iron Commander, honestly, you don't need anything better than 40% increased critical strike chance, unless maybe you've got, Culling Strike. That would be the only real bow node that I would take. And then again, you've also got, this, you can get Point Blank down here, which is good if you're going to be, if you're going to get some boost to your damage. But I think Culling Strike is probably the best thing for an Iron Commander that you can get. So that's what I think for the uber high investment. Mage Blood, wouldn't recommend. Headhunter, also wouldn't recommend. The 18% increased dexterity is just the absolute best you can get. The synthesize implicit for this is just insanely good. So yeah, that's what I've got for this. I hope you've enjoyed this build guide video. Let me know in the comments what you think. If you want to see more of these build guides, please subscribe, chuck it a like, help it get seen in other people's feeds. And I'm really looking forward to Lake of Kalandra. It's going to be, I think, a lot of fun. I'm so much looking forward to the harvest changes. Long overdue. And yeah, with that, I hope you're kind to everyone you meet. I love you all very much, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks very much.